hey y'all, I wanted to come on and talk about Exodus 14. So, some nonsense happened yesterday, and I was given by someone Exodus 14:14, and I didn't, off the top of my head, know what it meant, and it didn't send the verse with it. So I was like, okay, I'll check that when I get a second. And then I started scrolling on TikTok a little bit later. It wasn't that much longer. It was like 20 minutes later. I was just scrolling just to get my mind off of it. And I saw Exodus 14:14 again. But it didn't have anything written on it. It just had Exodus 14:14. I was like, okay, God, twice. But then like a 30-minute time span. It's not a coincidence. And then the next video I scroll has Exodus 14:14. And what it says is, the Lord will fight for you. You only have to be silent. And I was like, ooh. And then within like 2 scrolls, it was the song is, He will never stop fighting for me. So God was giving me a message yesterday, and I am listening. But I wanted to also go and read a few verses around it. But before, I grabbed a couple of my things because I still have some stuff in storage. I was like, oh, let me look at this. And you know when you open when you just like open and you kind of scan through? Well, what I opened to, let's take a clicker out of it, was Exodus 14:14. And I also had another Exodus 14:14 this morning. So God is really trying to get me to hear Exodus 14:14, which is awesome. But what I wanted, I'm not going to read that. I can do that another day. But what I wanted to read was, so from which verse? Verse 10. So it said, when Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes. So this is after Moses got the commission to go to Egypt to deliver the Israelites from the Pharaoh, right? Under the bondage, because they had been in bondage for so many years. They had the 10 plagues. So these Israelites got to witness the 10 plagues against Egypt, and they were unscathed. They've been wandering. They were going through the wilderness trying to get away. Not quite yet the wilderness, I guess you would say. So they were fleeing, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he was coming after the Jews, saying, in your sake, I want you back. You need to be under my rule. I need you so I can control you. So when Pharaoh drew near to the people of Israel, lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them. And they feared greatly. I mean, your enemy coming straight after you. And it could be a little scary, right? And then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt? So here he is. He saved them, and they are riddled with fear. How many of us, when the enemy's attacking, you can get fearful, right? Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone that we may die in the wilderness. Leave us alone that we may, I totally skipped a line. Leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians. I thought to say die in the wilderness, that doesn't make sense. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. So they'd rather be in bondage than to possibly go through what they might be going through. All right. Then it goes, and Moses said to the people, fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. Here's Exodus 14:14. The Lord will fight for you, and you only have to be silent. And then we're going to read a little bit further. It says, the Lord said to Moses, why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Don't stop, keep going. Lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they shall go in after them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, his chariots and his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten glory over the Pharaoh and his chariots and the horsemen. So, Moses had authority through the Lord to raise his staff and put his hands in the air, and the sea parted in front of him, so that the Israelites, who were fearful of the Pharaoh and his minions coming after them, that they got to cross on dry land. What is God doing for you today? Are you in a storm? Are enemies attacking on all sides? Does it seem like the enemy's going to overtake you? God is saying today, I will fight for you. You just have to be silent. But what's also cool is then the angel of God, so we're down to verse 19, says the angel of God, who was going before the host of Israel, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them. So in the wilderness, there was a cloud by day and a pillar of fire at night. So this cloud that was in front of them moved from in front of them, between them and the sea, and moved between them and the Egyptians. And it says, becoming between the host of Israel, of Egypt, and the host of Israel. And there was a cloud and the darkness, and it lit up the night, without one coming near the other all night. And so, fast forward a little bit, the Israelites cross over safely on the other side of the Red Sea. And Moses let his hands down. And remember, the Egyptians are following through. The Egyptians pursued, so we're down to verse 23 now. The Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea. Could you imagine? I'm like, Pharaoh, after they've gone through all these plagues, and then they see this water parting. Did it not click in your head that these waters might come down on you? That you just went through these 10 plagues. You just lost your son. Like, I don't think he's thinking clearly. So they went to the midst of the sea, all the Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And in the morning watch, the Lord in the pillar of fire and the cloud looked down on the Egyptian forces and threw the Egyptian forces into a panic, clogging their chariot wheels. So they drove heavily, and the Egyptians said, "Let us flee before Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians." Y'all, I don't know what you're going through, but our God is bigger than anything you face. Anything you face. And I tell you, the enemy's going to come after you. Weapons will form, but they will not prosper. Because my God told me in Exodus 14:14, the Lord will fight for you. You only have to be silent. So I'm working on my silence for the battle that God's fighting for me. I hope this helped you some, because I know a lot of us are fighting battles that no one talks about.